The first engine failed at exactly 10:47 a.m. The second one died 3 minutes later. At 30,000 feet, with 47 passengers on board, I was suddenly flying a 180,000-pound glider. The control tower's voice crackled through my headset. "That's impossible, son. No one can land that plane without engines." But I was Alex Rodriguez, and impossible had never been in my vocabulary. My name is Alex Rodriguez, and 6 months ago, I became the youngest commercial pilot in U.S. aviation history at 19 years old. People said I was too young, too inexperienced, too ambitious. That Tuesday morning in October, I was about to prove that age is just a number when lives are on the line. Growing up in Bayamon, Puerto Rico, I used to lie on my grandmother's roof every evening, watching planes disappear into the orange Caribbean sunset. "Mijo," she'd say, "those planes are going to places you can't even imagine." But I could imagine. Every night, I dreamed of being the one behind the controls, taking people to their destinations, to their families, to their dreams. My father worked 3 jobs to pay for my flight lessons. "Alex, you sure about this?" he'd ask, counting crumpled bills on our kitchen table. "Pilots need college. They need connections. They need passion, Poppy." I'd interrupt, "And I have enough for 10 pilots." I started flying at 16. By 17, I had my private pilot license. My instructor, Captain Santos, used to shake his head. "Alex, you fly like you've been doing this for 20 years, not 20 lessons." At 18, I got my commercial license. At 19, I was hired by Atlantic Airways, making me the youngest commercial pilot in the country. But experience isn't measured in years. It's measured in moments. And on the 15th of October, I was about to get a lifetime of experience in 37 minutes. Flight 447 was supposed to be routine. Miami to Newark, 47 passengers, beautiful October morning. I was the first officer, paired with Captain David Miller, a 25-year veteran with over 15,000 flight hours. "Kid," he said during our pre-flight briefing, "today's your lucky day. Perfect weather, light traffic, smooth sailing." Captain Miller was right about the weather. Crystal clear skies, visibility unlimited, winds calm. Our Boeing 737 lifted off Miami International at 9:15 a.m., climbing steadily toward our cruising altitude of 31,000 feet. The passengers were settling in, flight attendants were preparing the beverage service, and everything was exactly as it should be. "Beautiful morning for flying," I said to Captain Miller as we leveled off. "Every morning's beautiful when you're up here, Rodriguez. That's the secret to this job. Never lose that feeling." I was looking out at the Atlantic Ocean, thinking about how far I'd come from that rooftop in Puerto Rico, when the first warning light appeared on our instrument panel. Engine number 1 was showing unusual readings. "Dave, look at this," I said, pointing to the engine parameters. Captain Miller leaned over, his experienced eyes scanning the gauges. "That's not normal. Let's run the checklist." We went through the engine malfunction checklist, step by step. Oil pressure dropping, engine temperature rising. Then, at 10:47 a.m., engine number 1 simply stopped. The plane shuddered slightly, but 737 seconds are designed to fly on one engine. We weren't in immediate danger. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Miller speaking. We've experienced a minor mechanical issue with one of our engines. As a precaution, we'll be diverting to Philadelphia International Airport. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for an early arrival." I was already calculating our new route to Philadelphia, adjusting our altitude for single-engine performance, when the second engine warning light came on. "Alex, look at this." Captain Miller's voice had changed. The confidence was gone. Engine number 2 was showing the same symptoms. Oil pressure dropping fast, temperature climbing. I felt my heart rate increase, but my hands remained steady on the controls. "This can't be happening," Miller muttered. "Both engines don't just fail. This doesn't happen." But it was happening. At 10:50 a.m., our second engine died. Suddenly, we weren't flying anymore. We were falling with style, as they say. A 180,000-pound glider, with 47 souls on board, descending at 1,000 feet per minute. "Mayday, mayday, mayday," I called into the radio. "Atlantic 447. Dual engine failure, 47 souls on board, requesting immediate vectors to nearest suitable airport." The controller's voice came back, professional but tense. "Atlantic 447, say again. Did you say dual engine failure?" "Affirmative. Both engines out. We're a glider now." There was a pause. Then, "Atlantic 447. We show Philadelphia International bearing 045, distance 78 nautical miles. But son, that's impossible to reach from your altitude." Captain Miller was frozen, 25 years of experience, and he'd never faced anything like this. His hands were shaking as he stared at the engine instruments, as if willing them back to life. "Dave," I said quietly, "I need you to focus. We can do this." Alex, we're 47 people are going to die because both engines failed. This is impossible. No, I said, taking control of the aircraft. Impossible is giving up. Hand me the emergency checklist. The next few minutes were the most important of my life. We were at 28,000 feet and losing altitude fast. Philadelphia was 78 miles away. In aviation, we have a rule of thumb. For every 1,000 feet of altitude, you can glide about 2.5 miles. We needed 78 miles, but could only glide about 70. But rules of thumb are just guidelines. And sometimes, you have to write your own rules. Ladies and gentlemen, this is First Officer Rodriguez speaking. My voice was calm, steady. We've lost both engines, but this aircraft is designed to glide safely. I need everyone to remain calm, fasten your seatbelts, and follow the flight attendant's instructions. We're going to get through this together. I could hear crying from the passenger cabin. Someone was praying in Spanish, the same prayers my grandmother used to whisper during thunderstorms, but I couldn't think about fear right now. Fear was a luxury I couldn't afford. Philadelphia approach. Atlantic 447, I called. We're going to need the longest runway you have. Emergency equipment standing by. We're coming in dead stick. Roger, Atlantic 447. Runway 27R is available, 12,000 feet. Emergency crews are rolling. Alex, Captain Miller finally spoke. How are you so calm? Because panic doesn't solve problems, I replied, adjusting our glide angle. My grandmother used to say that when the hurricane comes, you don't curse the wind. You adjust your sails. I was extending our glide using every technique I'd ever learned. Flying at the exact speed for maximum glide ratio, using air currents, making tiny adjustments to squeeze every mile out of our descent. The math was simple but unforgiving. We had one chance to get this right. At 15,000 feet, Philadelphia International came into view. We were still 35 miles out, but I could see the runways. More importantly, I could see we might actually make it. Atlantic 447, you're cleared to land any runway. Emergency equipment is standing by. Roger, cleared to land. At 8,000 feet, I knew we were going to make it to the airport. But landing a dead airplane is nothing like landing with engines. No thrust to adjust your approach, no power to correct mistakes. You get one chance, and it has to be perfect. Dave, I need you to help me now, I said to Captain Miller. Call out our altitude and airspeed. Something in my voice brought him back. The veteran pilot I'd heard so much about finally appeared. Roger, 5,000 feet, 180 knots. I configured the aircraft for landing. Flaps down, landing gear extended. Each change affected our glide performance, but we needed to be ready to land. 4,000 feet, 170 knots. 3,000 feet, 165 knots. We were lined up with runway 27R, perfect approach angle, perfect speed. All those hours of practice, all those emergency procedures drilled into my head since flight school, everything was coming together. 2,000 feet, 160 knots. I could see the emergency vehicles lining the runway, fire trucks, ambulances, airport police. The media was probably already being called. But all I could focus on was the runway threshold getting larger in our windscreen. 1,000 feet, 155 knots. You're looking good, Alex. 500 feet, 150 knots. Runway made. The moment our wheels touched runway 27R was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. No engines, no thrust reversers, just wheel brakes and aerodynamic drag to stop us. We rolled for what seemed like forever. But we stayed on the runway, we stayed upright, and we stopped. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Philadelphia, I announced. Please remain seated until the aircraft comes to a complete stop, and the flight attendants give you instructions to evacuate. The evacuation was flawless. All 47 passengers and 5 crew members walked away without a scratch. The emergency slides deployed perfectly, and within minutes, everyone was safe on the ground. Captain Miller grabbed my shoulder as we stood on the tarmac. Alex, in 25 years of flying, I've never seen anything like that. You just did the impossible. No, Dave. We did what we trained to do. We just did it under pressure. The investigation later revealed that both engines had failed due to a rare mechanical fault, a 1 in a million failure that had never been recorded before. The NTSB called our landing exceptional airmanship under extraordinary circumstances. The media attention was overwhelming. Miracle in Philadelphia, the headlines read. 9-year-old hero pilot saves 47 lives. Late-night talk shows wanted interviews. Aviation magazines wanted my story. But all I could think about was calling my grandmother. Mijo, she said when I finally reached her. I saw you on the news. I'm so proud. Abuela, I was scared. Good. Fear keeps you alive, but courage keeps others alive. You had both. 6 months later, I'm still flying for Atlantic Airways. The company promoted me to captain, youngest in their history. I fly the same route sometimes, Miami to Newark, and I always think about that October morning. People ask me how I stayed so calm, how I knew what to do. The truth is, I didn't know if we were going to make it, but I knew that giving up guaranteed we wouldn't. Every pilot trains for emergencies, but you never know how you'll react until it happens. My father still has that newspaper clipping on his refrigerator. Local boy saves 47 lives. But he also has my first grade drawing of an airplane with future pilot written in crayon. You see, my Joe, he tells people, dreams come true, but they come with responsibility. I still lie on rooftops sometimes, watching planes disappear into the sunset. But now I know something I didn't know as a kid. It's not about reaching impossible places. It's about bringing people safely home. And sometimes, when everything goes wrong, that's when you discover what you're really capable of. They said I was too young to handle that crisis. But age doesn't determine capability. Preparation does. Training does. And when 47 people trust you with their lives, you find strength you didn't know you had. My name is Alex Rodriguez. I'm 20 years old now, and I'm still the youngest commercial airline captain in American aviation history. But more importantly, I'm the pilot who learned that impossible is just another word for difficult, and difficult is just another word for Tuesday.